This is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today we're going to do a real quick video for you, and that's going to be making smoked salt in the Big Chief electric smoker. This is something that's really simple to do, and so that's why it'll be such a quick video. Now, of course, you can go to the store and buy a bottle of salt like this for $15, $16 at the time of the video, of course, or you can take some good old-fashioned kosher salt and you can put that in your smoker and end up with smoked salt. Now, you don't have to necessarily use kosher salt, but this is my favorite salt to use. I like the big flakes, and it's good for just about everything. There is no iodine in this, so if you're worried about that, that's good also. And if you want the salt to be fine after you're done, you can simply put it in the food processor and break it down. That's really good for something like a brine if you want to infuse a little bit of pre-smoke flavor in your brine. Also really good if you want to pre-infuse some smoke flavor in some of your food, or if you're just going to use it as a topping for something like, I don't know, deviled eggs. Adds a nice little touch of smoke without actually having to fight them in the smoker. Now I'll set this aside, and when the salt is done, I like to put it in one of these small mason jars. This one happens to be one of the decorative ball jars. And my wife thinks it's really cute and likes to see them sitting around, and then she just puts a decorative piece of paper on there, makes it look real fancy. What you can see here, though, is it's empty. Now first I'm going to start by talking about the wood here. You can use any flavor you like. In the example here, this one that I purchased years ago is cherry flavored wood, and I actually prefer to use something like hickory, and I don't usually go with mesquite. Alder is also a really nice choice. It's not the strongest wood, which makes it really versatile for different dishes, and then you can use really strong salt with a mellower wood and it'll work out really well. Of course, you know pecan is my favorite, but we usually go with something like this. Now I preheated the smoker and I threw just a small amount of wood chips in there to make sure that it was working correctly. I'll go ahead and fill this all the way up and go ahead and let it work. As usual, I make it kind of a mountain. I try not to pack it into the corners. Slide it in there and I'm done. Now, I love to do everything on a cookie sheet, and this is a half sheet pan here, and these things work for just about everything. They fit in all the major full-size smokers, and they also go right into the oven, so I can take something out of the smoker and directly into the oven. And then we've got our standard Big Chief rack and our standard cut to size grill mat. Of course, you can buy Big Chief grill mats that are already cut to size to use. I do have a package of the Little Chief ones, but I buy whatever is the most convenient and the most budget friendly. Then for the smoked salt, I usually use pop-up parchment paper. There's a bunch of different brands. Of course, Reynolds is really popular, but any brand will work. Some of the brands have a side where there's more of the silicone than others. If you can't identify it, I just go whichever one is folded. So I put the fold down, and then I'm going to fold both ends just a little bit to give it a form so it'll stay flat on the tray. I make sure it's going to fit in there. Looks good. Then I'm just going to take the salt and I'm going to spread it evenly on here. So that was about a quarter cup, and you can use whatever amount you like. Now I've already got that preheated and I've already got the smoker loaded. I'm going to go ahead and load this in there, and then we'll talk a little bit more. I want you to see here that I put this tray in the very top. Normally, if I was smoking a food, I wouldn't do that. I find a better range is right here for food because I know what the temperature is, a little more consistent on the airflow. But because it's salt, my only concern is that I hit it pretty heavy with the smoke. So I like the top for that. If I were more concerned about heat, I would probably lower it. And this smoker tends to be the hottest right about in the middle of the smoker. And as you go up, it gets less smoky. Now, as a standard procedure, I always keep a piece of tinfoil down on the drip tray. That way, if anything falls on it, I just throw the tinfoil away because I'm kind of lazy like that. The next thing is that if you don't want to use your wood chip tray and you would like to just let it run, or let's say you've got plans for the day and you can put this someplace safe, like not right next to the house, so I'll be keeping an eye on it, of course, but you could take and use one of the pellet trays. Just like in any of my other videos, I just fill it up and I gauge how much time I want and I light it. This pellet tray works really good, but do not put it on the bottom on the flat surface. And you can't put it in the door because you're running the heater element, and that could mess up the pellet tray. We just don't want to take the chance. So what I normally do is I put a grill grate on the very bottom and move the drip tray up 2 shelves, and then I can light this, set it down in there once it's going well, and then let it go. Now, this will also work pretty well. You do want to keep these tilted at a slight angle like that, so as the pellets burn, they don't fall out. As soon as they light up, they tend to roll away from the other pellets, which will slow down your smoking. This one seems to generate just a little bit more smoke than this, especially if it's propped just a little bit. But this one's best use has been the pellet smoker by far. So if you have a pellet grill like a Traeger or the one I have in my last video, this works really well in it. Just take a little rock, put it under one end. I think that this side that's got the solid thing is the bottom, but I'm not positive about that. I always place that down like that with a rock, and the thing just burns all the way through and turns out great. I'm gonna let this go ahead and burn through. Usually the pan like that, because it's not packed full, is gonna be 30 to 40 minutes. If it was a little bit fuller, it could be up to 45 minutes. And depending on the outside temperature also affects that. We're kind of medium today. It's been a little unseasonably cool out here, and we've just been getting poured on. So the temperature is low, which will mean that it'll burn a little bit slower than normal. Now, if you filled the pan all the way up and you had a slower burn, you would get about an hour out of one of these full pans, especially if you use the larger wood chunks. I don't recommend putting wood chunks directly on the bottom. I recommend putting a little bit of bed of chips on the bottom and then putting chunks on the top. And then as they get going, it kind of spreads through and gets a better burn. I'm gonna let that go ahead and smoke, and we'll be right back in a couple seconds. It's been just over an hour. I went ahead and let it completely smoke out so the pan was completely burned up. No worries, no hurry. This is salt, so we're not stressing. Go ahead, and I'm going to remove the tray. I'm going to bring this up to you and show you, but what you're going to see is not a lot. It just barely started to change color, so you really can almost not even tell. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stir this around. Usually what I do is I scrape it to one side. Oh, when you pile it together, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a white spot here that was down and all this other stuff is tinted. The idea is to give it a little mix. I'll turn it over, and then I'm going to spread it back out. I'm going to go ahead and load this back in the smoker and put another pan of wood chips. And after that pan of wood chips is burned, I'll stir it again and see how it looks. Let's go ahead and take it out. Just finished burning that last pan. Still a little bit of smoke left in here. I'm going to bring it up here for you to get a good look at it. And it's very light brown in color. So it's not dark or anything, but you can tell that it is not white like it was when I put it up there. Now for me, this is the minimum that I would want to go. I definitely want to smoke it more than that if you want it strong. Now, my wife will probably think this is perfect. So let's just go with this today and we'll go from there. Now, next thing you want to do is make sure that it's dry. And as long as it's completely dry, then you can go ahead and put it directly in the jar. If not, then set it on the kitchen counter for a couple hours until you know for sure it's dry. Oh, and just like that, look at that. Again, it's still really light. Oh, it smells really good. I'm sure it tastes like smoked salt. So anyway, this is a quick one for you. Really easy to do and really good way to add a lot of flavor to your cheap salt. So you can just buy Morton's kosher salt right off the shelf or whatever store brand that is there and put it in your smoker, and so easy. You don't even have to hassle with it. If you don't have any parchment paper, feel free to use foil. The first time I ever did this, I did it on foil and it turned out just fine. It will work on anything else that has a flat surface that allows room for the smoke to come around. So a small pan or even a oven safe glass plate. And when I say oven safe, it doesn't have to go up to a lot of temperature because this only goes up to 165. So if it'll handle 165 degrees, you can put the salt on it, or even a like a dish. But if the sides get too high, the smoke won't actually get to it. So you'll have to smoke it for a lot longer to get the same amount of smoke. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.